They are open to moving on from their 27-year-old wide receiver, who will be 28 by the start of the season, who has 1 year left on his contract worth $31.8 million, who, I mean, we'll dive into price, but I don't know if you slap a price tag on this guy that you don't feel comfortable with when it comes to looking for a wide receiver. DK Metcalf becomes available, shocked everybody. I mean, it was in the midst of Tyler Lockett being released, Christian Kirk being released, and we'll touch on both of those here in a second. Boom, big explosion happens. It is DK Metcalf. Shortly after, TJ Watt's price tag went through the roof with Max Crosby, and it almost felt like nobody cared because DK Metcalf is available and all these teams want him. We'll obviously tie this to the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were linked to DK Metcalf last summer. Me and you sat on this exact podcast. I sat in the conference room at St. Vincent College. I remember the day as clearly as I could remember it, talking about how out of Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, and DK Metcalf, the name that made the most sense outside of Ayuk, who they were already chasing, was DK Metcalf. The name that maybe, if things just really went awry, the Steelers could get their hands on, it was DK Metcalf. Well, just like Brandon Ayuk, it's been a whole year, but they might be able to get their hands on him. I, for starters, would pay anything for DK Metcalf in a reasonable one pick range. I'd hand him the 21st pick in the draft with ease. I'd hand him the 21st pick and a third-round pick with ease. I'd hand him a first-round pick and maybe next year's second-round pick with ease for DK Metcalf. People will say, oh, you don't want to spend that for a wide receiver. You spend it for the wide receiver. This is not a nobody. This is a guy whose worst season in the NFL was as a rookie with 900 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. That is a guy, he's a player who, if Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase did not exist, would be a first-team All-Pro every single season. That is who DK Metcalf is. I mean, it's no question the Steelers should make some phone calls. It's more a matter of how much do you bend before you break if you're Pittsburgh. And I'll tell you, I'm pretty folded. If I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm as close to snapping as possible before I get off that phone and say, never mind, this isn't going to work out. I'd give it all for DK Metcalf in a reasonable range, but that reasonable range definitely includes a first-round pick, and I'd feel very comfortable with it. DK Metcalf, I mean, you saw it. You had a reaction. What was it? What are you willing to give up for the guy?
I hate to rain on your parade because you're in an all-time roll right now. But if the Steelers are interested, which they should be, and like you mentioned, if a phone call hasn't already gone through from Pittsburgh to Seattle, there will be one in short order.
Yes.
But that's going to be the case for a lot of other franchises.
100%.
We sat on the All-NFL Talk debut yesterday and talked about how desperate the New England Patriots are to bring in a guy for Drake May. They're going to be all in on this guy too. Now, are they going to be willing to give up the draft capital, seeing as they have more holes than Pittsburgh has bridges when it comes to their NFL roster?
Yeah,
that's a question. But there's also going to be a lot of other franchises that are in the running for DK Metcalf. And Omar Khan doesn't strike me as somebody who's going to go as far as you just mentioned, going to go as far as saying, what do you want? Because I'm going to bend until I'm completely folded before I break on DK Metcalf. Let's not forget, Omar Khan is somebody that never wants to come out on the bad side of a trade, that always wants to say, I'm going to be patient. And that patience is going to lead me to sometimes missing out on options, which we saw last year, but sometimes it's going to lead me to making really good trades, aka getting technically Joey Porter Jr. for Chase Claypool.
Agreed.
I think because of that prior knowledge of the way that Omar Khan has operated since he took over as general manager, matched with the fact that DK Metcalf is going to be highly coveted around the NFL, I feel like the likelihood of the Steelers becoming the favorite in this conversation is low. I think
don't say low. It's definitely can't be low. What,
I mean, but there's going to be other teams. That's what I'm saying is like, I
well,
feel
why
like
would
other teams are
you
going to be above them.
why would you not try to outbid other teams if you were the Steelers? What would
I
be your reasoning behind that?
because simply because I don't think Omar Khan's somebody that wants to go into a bidding war. I don't think he has
Oh,
that in his soul.
I mean, I definitely do. He was in a bidding war last year with Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah,
He didn't
and why
win
didn't
it.
he get across the line?
He failed, but he was there. He won the bidding war. He outlasted everybody else except for Brandon Ayuk. That was the only guy he couldn't outlast. But I think that and if that's the case, shame on Omar Khan. And I don't believe that's the case. But you enter a bidding war for DK Metcalf. This is not Cooper Kupp. This is not Deebo Samuel. This is not Tyler Lockett or Christian Kirk or Tyreek Hill, who's 31 years old. This is $31 million DK Metcalf, who's worth every penny, who you will get to sign to an extension for $35 million. But we've already had the conversation of we'd be willing to pay that for T. Higgins. I'd be willing to pay that more for DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf is definitely a better wide receiver. He's healthier. And look at, I mean, you could make the argument of the attitude issues. If Pittsburgh could keep him calm, I'm all about it. I think I agree with you. Maybe he doesn't want to get into a bidding war. Shame on Omar Khan if he doesn't, because you get into a bidding war and you try to outbid. I'd outbid anybody. If the New England Patriots are willing to give up the 4th pick in the draft for DK Metcalf, let them do that. Mike Vrabel's job's already on the line. It's pretty much over at that point. Like ship has sailed. He could go to New England because the Patriots won't win a Super Bowl the entire time he's there after doing something like that, because that's just wild, especially in a draft where you have an opportunity to take your franchise left tackle, which you desperately need, or a guy named Travis Hunter who could play wide receiver, maybe at the same level as DK Metcalf, and you don't have to pay him or trade your first pick, and you get him for 4 years. I mean, that one would be wild. I do expect a bidding war. I agree on that one. My argument is win the bidding war. Win it. Yeah. Like, don't lose the bidding war. This is the splash. Think about how much better the Steelers offense gets with DK Metcalf. I'm not getting rid of George Pickens if that's the case. I'm keeping George Pickens. I'm keeping DK Metcalf. And I'm trading my first round pick for DK. Most likely. That's what it's going to cost. Minimum. And then you just that's a Mecca Ibuka. You just landed your first round wide receiver. Yes, he's worth $35 million, but that's okay. That's okay. You have the money. Go get Justin Fields. He now has one hell of a receiving core, and go fix your defense later in the draft and everywhere else, because you still have a boatload of money and you have a 2nd round pick, which you could go get anything else you want. I just feel like there's no reason not to go try to win the bidding war. I just, maybe I'm wrong, but in my eyes, DK Metcalf makes the Pittsburgh Steelers offense legitimate. I'm not going to say they're a contender, but they're legitimate. That's the best thing you could do for Justin Fields if you're trying to make that thing work.
Yeah, it'll be Justin and the Aliens. You can print the shirts now, because
that's what I'm saying.
He doesn't need accuracy. He could just throw it up, and those two guys are going to come down with it because they're going to be ahead of everybody. I don't disagree with the fact that DK Metcalf is a game changer for the Pittsburgh Steelers. If they run out there with Metcalf and Pickens, I don't care who's the number 3. I like Roman Wilson. I like Calvin Austin, but they don't need to even be in the conversation at that point. The only thing I'm saying is, if it comes down to a bidding war, I feel other GMs are going to be more desperate than Omar. I don't get the sense of desperation from Omar that I get from other general managers. And I think that's what it comes down to. All I'm saying.
You might not be wrong. You might not be wrong. And there are going to be teams. My biggest question is, who are going to be those teams? Because if it's the Buffalo Bills, you could outbid them. If it's the Kansas City Chiefs, you could outbid them. And the Chiefs are crazy to go out there and get a $31 million wide receiver when they can't afford offensive linemen. They need everybody because of the guys that they have signed. I mean, I don't know who else would be super desperate at the end of the draft. The Chargers. The Chargers might be a name. That could be a dangerous name. Vegas is interesting too. But my thing with the top half of the draft, okay, is you're not going to give up your first round pick for DK Metcalf. Nah, they're crazy to give up 7. Crazy. I'm not saying they wouldn't, but that's crazy. Like, that's where it gets too far. Is a wide receiver is never worth a top 10 pick ever. And look, I'll try to confirm this. I will try to do my research and talk to people around the league and see who's interested and who's not, because I think that would give us a really good idea of how real this situation is. But I think top hat, like if you are picking 7th and you trade the 7th pick in the draft and you don't have a quarterback, what are you doing? How did you end up in this wild scenario? Now I get it. Played for Pete Carroll. You have that tie. You definitely have that tie. But at the same time, the last time they traded for a wideout was Devontae Adams, and that did not work in their favor. So maybe it comes back to bite them in the butt. If you could eliminate the Raiders and the Patriots, I think the 21st pick in the draft, outside of maybe Los Angeles, that one's the real one, is a lot better than anything else anybody could give you, as long as you're willing to go to add to it as others are adding to it. If somebody's adding a 3rd round pick, you got to add your 3rd round pick. But if it's New England's 2nd round pick and their 3rd round pick versus the 21st pick in the 3rd round pick, you win that. You're going to walk away the winners on that one. And the good thing is they're in the AFC. So they don't have to, they're not competing with the Seahawks. Don't care if the Bills win the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like they care if the Rams get DK Metcalf, which works in the Steelers' favor. I'm not going to rule it out. I think this is the offseason where, if there's ever been an offseason where the Steelers are saying, we're going to do something stupid and we're going to see if it works out, this is going to be the offseason. This is going to be the offseason. If they don't, go ahead. You look like you got final thoughts there.
No, I don't agree with that sentiment, but I could see there's a chance that they're like, you know what? Screw it. What can we do? TJ's not getting any younger. Cam's not getting any younger. Mike's not getting any younger, but also Mike's not going anywhere. So I don't think that even plays a factor into it. But maybe
Mr. Rooney's not getting any younger.
Yeah, maybe just maybe get that desperate. They've been saying that they are, but they haven't been following suit as the summer rolls on. Maybe this is the year that they actually follow suit with that desperation they've been talking about in that first 2 meetings after they get bounced from the playoffs.
They tried last year. They were willing. Like, that's the thing, is people say they didn't pull it off. They pulled it off. Brandon Ayuk said, no thanks, pal. I already bought my house here and my parents' house here. Like, that was a losing battle from the jump. I don't know. I'm not going to say no. Never say never. And I've seen the Steelers do wilder things in dumber areas, So why not go out? I mean, they drafted Kenny Pickett with the 20th pick in the NFL draft. Okay. They didn't do that because that was the smart move. They did that out of desperation. Maybe the 21st pick goes to DK Metcalf out of desperation because they need a wide receiver.